Fun Ideas Productions presents the Fun Ideas Podcast.
Hi, this is Mark Arnold, and welcome to Fun Ideas Podcast number 26. We're still waiting for copies of Alvin, the story of Ross Bagdasarian Sr., Liberty Records Format Films, and The Alvin Show. A reminder that I'm scheduled to be on Stu's show live on April 22nd to discuss this book, and also I've appeared recently on Phil Hall's online movie show to discuss it as well. I don't have an air date for that. Our guest today has been a professional cartoonist since age 14. He was a curator for the Toonseum in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where I had an Harvey Art Show about 10 years ago. He has written a few books, including The Three Little Pigsburghers and A Celebration of Animation. Currently, he has a regular comic strip panel called Mazetoons. Here he is, Joe Waz.
Okay, on the phone today I have Joe Waz, and I just want to know a little bit more about you, so tell me how you became who you are, because you have a lot of different talents.
I do have a lot of bizarre skills that I sort of try and piece together into one career, don't I? I actually probably best known as a maze artist, drawing cartoon illustrated mazes, and I started drawing cartoons when I was about 4 years old. My parents caught me drawing on the walls with a crayon. And they didn't get mad, they didn't yell, they taped paper up on the walls and said, go ahead, and I've been drawing ever since. And I guess, you know, cartooning has always been the biggest part of my life. Mm-hmm. And if you look at everything I do, it's sort of all connected to that, whether it's running a cartoon museum or being a cartoonist or doing voiceover work or the mazes or my workshops. It's all connected to cartooning.
Wow. And, of course, we'll talk about all that. I was just kind of just giving you a chance to say how it started. Now, when you started drawing, did you have, like, I know you do Mazetoons, which we'll talk about in a bit, but did you have mazes in mind when you first started drawing, or did you just draw anything and everything? What did you tend to draw when you first started drawing?
My earliest memories of drawing are of Snoopy. I really loved Peanuts. I still do, of course. Mm-hmm. And, you know, my goal, like many young cartoonists, was to be the next Charles M. Schultz. Mm-hmm. Not realizing at that age that there can only be one Charles M. Schultz. Mm-hmm. And that was my hero. And that's my earliest memories of drawing Peanuts. And it was a big influence on me. As I got a little older, by the time I was about 7 or 8, is when I really started drawing, taking to the mazes. I grew up in the 70s, and mazes were sort of a big phenomenon then, but they weren't very difficult. Mm-hmm. And so I would make these mazes that were much more challenging and would just give the originals to my friends, and they would just solve them right on the originals. You know, we didn't have access to a photocopy or anything, so, mm-hmm. But that was really how it started with the mazes, was like I just wanted to challenge my friends and would just draw these really complex mazes.
I think I read somewhere you started doing mazes about age 7, is that correct?
Yeah, I was about 7 years old, and that would have been 1977. So, mm-hmm. So sort of the maze craze was sort of right at its peak, right around then. So we were seeing lots of maze books. You know, mazes were just, you know, everywhere. You know, they do back of cereal boxes, and you know, they remain popular. They're still, you know, as popular as ever. But that was certainly when they were really just a phenomenon.
Okay. Well, not to divulge your secrets too much, or if you want to, you can, but how does one do a maze? I don't know. I started off drawing cartoons and stuff like that, like yourself, but then I ended up doing more writing, but never really did many mazes. You know, it seemed too difficult to kind of come up with it. So is there like a key to doing it, or you just have a knack for doing it? How does it work?
You know, the parallel I give is Robert Benchley wrote a great piece, and actually I believe recorded as well, called, you know, just How to Build a Bridge. Mm-hmm. And he was just dumbfounded about this idea of how would you go about building a bridge. You know, and I think mazes have a certain similarity. It's just sort of this, you look at them and you go, okay, I can see it. I know it must have been drawn and created, but I have no idea how you go about doing something like that. And it's really intuitive. So the first question I get most often is, do you draw the solution first? No, I absolutely do not. The way I draw is I just start drawing. And I'll create create a path, and that path will split off into maybe 2 or 3 paths. And then I'll follow one of those paths, split that off into 2 or 3 paths. Then go back and close off some paths. But I'm always leaving at least 2 paths open when I'm working on a larger maze in case I make a mistake. I work, even when I draw mazes on paper, I work strictly in marker. I never erase. I don't use pencil. To me, that's sort of like cheating. You know, and it's also, my audience, you know, I don't want them to erase. I want them to just try and solve the maze. So I have to be fair and do the same thing, I guess. Although I work digitally now. But it's really a matter of just sitting down and I just draw it. And if the maze has a theme, like say I'm drawing a maze that I know is going to have a hippo in it, I'll sometimes start the maze and then draw in that character, and then work the maze within the characters. That's one of the things that's unique about my mazes is that the illustrations are integrated into a solvable part of the maze.
Right.
But I'll get about halfway through, and then I'll start backwards from the maze, starting from the finish. The reason being, I found out at an early age, everybody cheats when they do mazes. They start from the finish because it's easier. Because going into a finish, you know, when you come out of the start, there's multiple paths, but there's only one true path going into the finish. So if you go backwards, you've only got one path to follow. My mazes, I draw forwards and backwards, so no matter which way you start, it should be just as complicated.
Okay. Yeah, that was one of my questions, is like when you draw them, and you answered it, you know, it's like, do you do it from start to finish, or from finish to start, or both? And apparently it's both. So
yeah, I do both. Most maze artists don't. A lot of them will just start and keep going, but I do both.
Of course, it always comes to mind, I'm sure you've seen it, the puzzle pages that were in the Mad comic book where it just shows them going around the maze to get to the end instead of going through it.
Yes, yeah. And I love sort of every April Fool's Day, I do a maze that can't be solved.
Right, okay.
So I love doing things like that, too.
And, well, that brings up a question. I mean, it's like, have you ever had one that you didn't intentionally make it unsolvable, or... you know, and then people say, hey, you know, not for April Fool's, just a general one, or you just make sure that it does work before you submit it? I'm
very good at making sure they do work because I'm very careful on keeping multiple paths open.
Okay.
Only one time, and it's a great one to happen on. I was creating a maze for Ripley's Believe It or Not. It was going to be for one of their museums. And it was 6 feet high by 12 feet long, paper I was drawing on, and I got about halfway done, and I draw in Sharpie for the mural mazes, and I realized I had quite literally just drawn myself into a corner and did not allow, I closed off all my paths. And because it was for Ripley's, I knew it was going to go into the museum, I needed it to be perfect, and so I scrapped it and started over again.
Oh, wow.
But that's the only time that's ever really happened to me, and boy, was it nerve-wracking.
Now, is this the same one? I think I read that you have designed the largest maze. I guess that would be for Guinness, or...
So, no, that was a different one.
Oh,
and
okay.
then I guess it's going on quite a few years now. I created the world's largest hand-drawn maze.
Okay.
That one was 4 feet high by 36 feet long.
Oh, wow.
And that established the world record. I have since had a few people beat the world record, and people keep saying, you know, when are you going to defend your title? I feel like I'm, you know, this old West gunfighter. I got to keep looking over my shoulder for the next maze guy coming up behind me. But that was, I think there was over 150 illustrations in that. And it toured a bit, and then I sold it to a company in Changzhou, China that was displaying it at a mall. So that's what ended up happening to that one.
Now, how did you construct that one? I mean, what tools did you use? Because you can't really do that on a computer, can you?
No, that's done with Sharpie, just regular felt tip marker, and then I draw on this material called Tyvek, which is the sort of indestructible paper. It's the stuff they wrap houses with.
Oh.
When they're insulating houses, or sometimes you'll see these indestructible paper wallets. That's the same stuff.
Okay. But when you did that, I guess, did you find paper that large, or did you just have to do it in pieces and join it together? How did you do that?
No, the Tyvek stuff, because it's designed to literally wrap houses, you know, in this protective thing, they have it in very large rolls.
Okay.
So I found a roll that was 4 feet high by, I think it was 200 feet. And I ended up using about 36 feet of that. So I can still go back. I still got another 100 and so feet left, so maybe I'll go back.
Now, when you drew it, did you just lay it out on the floor, or how did you do it? Because, I mean, you have to have a pretty big space to work on with stuff like that, right?
So when I started out, I actually took it to a couple different places to work on it. So it started at Jeppy's Entertainment Museum, which used to be in Baltimore.
Right.
And we had set up a dozen tables and laid out the first, 20 feet on the table. And I probably got about 15 feet done. And then I realized I wasn't going to have enough tables to keep laying on the table, so I would start working in gymnasium floors, or I was with the Toonseum. We just rolled it out in the Toonseum's main gallery, and that's where I ended up completing it. But I ended up working on the floor, which I don't know that I'd be able to do that again. Being on the ground the whole time drawing was a bit rough, but maybe we'll see.
Now, did you do it completely by yourself, or did you have assistants? I mean,
completely by myself.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Just had to. I don't know. It was a very personal mission for me.
So, how long did it take, roughly?
So, realistically, it technically took months. It took about 6 months.
Yeah.
But mostly because I could only dedicate maybe a couple hours at a time to it, and then it might be weeks before I get back to it.
Oh, okay.
Because I was running a museum at the time.
Right.
Total hours probably took about, I would guess 120 hours.
It's still a lot, yeah.
So it did take a lot of time. I did have to solve it, and it took me 6 hours to solve.
Oh, wow.
So that's a pretty good ratio, I think.
Now, you said you solved it. Well, how does one solve a puzzle like that, or do they just take your word? Yeah, it works. Or did they have people at the museums or wherever it was displayed to solve it? Or
I had to get a sheet of plastic, a big sheet of plastic, to cover over top of it, and then I took a red Sharpie and solved it using that.
I see.
Yeah, the solution, I forget we measured, but the actual solution, because it was so tangled back and forth on top of itself, it was close to a mile worth of line.
Oh, jeez.
So, if you were to take the line and stretch it out, it would have stretched over a mile. So it was quite a lot of work.
Now, that size, is it displayable in one piece of big, or?
It is. But that's why I ended up finally selling to a mall. Is that I think they're one of the few places that could display it. There's giant mega malls. It did display at a couple of museums, the Westmoreland Museum of Art, and it basically took up an entire room. It started on one wall near the entrance, and then wrapped around the entire room towards the exit, and it took up exactly the whole room.
Wow. Okay, well, coming back to Earth a little bit. Mazetoons is it a daily? Is it a daily strip?
It's a daily strip through Creator Syndicated. Every day and Sundays.
Okay. So, let's see. How quickly do you do those then, and what's your process on working on those then?
I have a horrible process. I need a better one because my creative process in general is to spend months doing absolutely nothing. And then about a week before everything's due, I do about 3 months worth of work.
Oh, wow.
So I work very fast, but I finally realized that I'm basically sort of this storage battery. That I'm walking around, during the day, and I see somebody walking their dog, and I think to myself, "Oh, that would make a good maze," and that stays in my memory somewhere. Or I see just a pattern in a tree, and I go, "Oh, that would make a good maze," and I store that, and then I sit down at my drawing desk, and I'll spend maybe 8 hours just cranking out mazes all day long.
Oh, wow.
And then I'll do that for about a week or 2 weeks where I'm just cranking out a lot of mazes. I'll get myself about 3 months ahead, and then I'll sort of take some time off and then work on other things. And then as my deadline rapidly approaches, I'll start getting a mad flux of drawing again, which is sort of where I am this week. I'm sort of in my actual drawing mode versus my storage mode.
Right.
So I've been doing a lot of drawing. Each maze, a daily only takes a couple minutes to draw, about 5 minutes at most. And then depending on the maze, it can take anywhere from a minute to 10 minutes to color. So I can crank out, a whole week's worth in about an hour and a half. If I'm going at a good pace. But the Sundays take a lot longer because the illustrations, it's usually a scene. It's not just a single character or a single object or an abstract design. It's usually a whole scene. So those take a lot longer to construct. So a Sunday might take anywhere from an hour to 3 hours for a Sunday, which is still pretty fast.
Yeah. And you said you did these on the computer then?
I now draw on computer. When I first started, I drew strictly on pen and paper. I used a Flair Fill Tip pen, which is my favorite pen, and I would work two size on paper, so I don't enlarge and shrink down. The reason being, it would make the mazes tougher to solve because the lines would tighten up. So I wanted to work the size so I knew exactly what I was getting. After about a year of working on paper, I would color on my computer using my Wacom tablet. And then I finally decided, this process is, because I have to draw it, and then I clean it up, and then I scan it, and then I color it. I should just try using the computer, and if anything, it looks so much better. People don't even know the difference, but I know the difference that actually the quality has actually improved. So I've been working strictly on a digital process for the past, I guess it's 2 years now.
Okay. And when you were doing it on paper, and I guess on the computer, because I'm not sure if you draw that way because you can just enlarge something, but what size were you drawing? Were you drawing like 2 times up or even larger? Or
No, I draw two size. Now, on the computer, I can zoom in a little bit.
Yeah.
So technically, probably when I zoom in, I'm probably at double my magnification. So probably about 2 up. But usually I start out just drawing to the actual size because I need to be able to see what it's going to look like in print. Because if those lines are too tight, when they print them, it'll blur together and the maze won't be solvable.
Right. So, and then the Sunday ones, are those like even larger? Or, I mean, what's the dimensions on these?
So I was about to say, they're both about the size of a regular. So the daily is the size of a regular panel. So that's like a 3x4. I think it's like a 3.25 by 4 or something.
Like Dennis the Menace or something that.
Like a Dennis the Menace, and then a Sunday is about the size of your traditional Sunday, like a Bizarro or a panel Sunday.
Okay, got it. Okay.
And I don't have a splash panel. My splash panel would be integrated into the maze itself.
I see. Okay. You don't have the Crime Stoppers textbook on the top, eh?
No, Crime Stoppers, which, a lot of those, were created so that they can accommodate different newspaper sizes.
Right.
And so, now there's as many newspapers, so it's not as important as it used to be.
So yours has to be printed the same way no matter where it is. You don't give a flexibility like a long skinny strip or something like that.
Yeah, there's no flexibility in the format, so it does, it does have certain limitations. I know like Wayno and Dan who do Bizarro, they do actually for their dailies, they do 2 formats. They do both a strip format and a panel format, which is great because it increases the number of newspapers. But for me, I'd have to basically just be redrawing an entire maze.
Right.
And I found that horizontal daily format does not work. For me, it's just a little too limiting.
Okay, interesting. And when did Mazetoons start? I think you said, but I just want to.
Yeah. Oh goodness. Well, like it actually started running on May 4th. Let's see. I guess it's I'm in my 3rd year now.
Oh, okay. So it's pretty recent. Okay.
I think I'm entering my 4th year.
Okay. So it's pretty
Yeah,
recent. I thought I'd seen it earlier, farther back than that, but maybe not. Okay.
Well, I was still, I was doing mazes. I just didn't have the syndicated feature. So I was doing, stuff for some magazines, things like that.
Okay.
I didn't have a feature.
Okay. Because I've been a friend of yours for a while, and we'll talk about the Toonseum and things in a bit. But on the maze, how did you get the syndicated strip? I mean, did you just contact the syndicate saying, "Hey, I can do mazes," or did they come to you? Or?
So this is, I'm going to give you the example of how not to do it.
Okay.
Which is the exact way that I did it.
Okay.
Which was, I had left the Toonseum, and about 6 months had gone by, and I realized, boy, I need to do something. The reason I left the Toonseum was really to just sort of start pursuing my cartooning career again. Mm-hmm. And I realized, I said, I'm never going to be able to do a comic strip. I don't have the temperament, the humor. I don't have the patience and persistence that is required to do a daily comic strip about characters.
Right.
So I don't want to draw the same thing day in, day out. And I thought, what do I do that's unique? What's my niche? And I sort of said the mazes was unique. No one does these cartoon illustrated mazes quite like I do. I'll do that. And on I think it was a Friday night, I started probably around 8 o'clock. I just started frantically drawing mazes. I started sort of figuring out what the format would need to be, and I put the packet together in one night of about 26 mazes. Mm-hmm. 2 Sundays, and then the rest were dailies. And I put together a packet of information about me and what my vision was. And I went online and looked up information about which syndicates, and most of the syndicates want you to send stuff by mail. So I said, okay, great. I'll print these up on Monday, and I'll mail them out. And there was 2 syndicates that took online submissions, King Features and Creators. Mm-hmm. And I sent them off probably at about 5 a.m. on, Saturday morning. And I immediately regretted it.
Yeah.
I thought to myself, oh, my God, I didn't get the formats right. This is foolish. Why would I do this? I'm not prepared. So I started writing to other cartoonist friends who do comic strips. Actually, I think Terry Liebenson, who does Pajama Diaries, was the first one I saw online. And I'm messaging her, like, what am I going to do? I sent this in. Are they going to punish me for doing this wrong? They'll never send another submission. And she said, don't worry. Nobody gets accepted on your first try. You'll wait 6 months, 3 to 6 months, and then they'll send you a rejection. That's what happens to everybody. And and that if you're lucky, they'll like it. They'll give you a few pointers. You fix it, and you send again in a couple months. Mm-hmm. So I said, okay, that's where I am, but I'm not going to send the rest of these out. Monday morning, I got a phone call from Creator Syndicate saying, we love this, we want to do it.
Wow.
It was just an unbelievable story because it never happens that way. But it was something unique, and they thought it filled a good niche, and it could go on the puzzle page, it could go on the comic strip page, so
right.
So it just sort of happened out of new. I was clearly not ready, but it happened anyway.
And then has it grown in popularity in papers and everything in the last couple of years?
It has. I mean, as you know, the industry is nowhere near what it once was.
Right.
Comics aren't getting carried in 1,000 newspapers because there are not 1,000 newspapers. Mm-hmm. I think right now I'm in about 30 or so newspapers, mm-hmm. Which isn't bad. I mean, obviously would love to be in a lot more, so it's slow going.
Yeah.
But I'm in interesting places. I'm actually quite popular in Sydney, Australia. Huh. It runs in the Daily Telegraph in Sydney, Australia on Sundays. Mm-hmm. And they run one of my dailies on a Sunday. So I'm always curious as to which one they run because they can pick whatever they want. Mm-hmm. And I get fan mail from Australia every now and then. And my books actually sell really well there, too, because of that, I think. So it's exciting.
So how does that work nowadays? I mean, because... gone are the days like we were talking about, Peanuts used to be like in almost 3,000 newspapers, and it's like, obviously, you said there's not 3,000 newspapers anymore. Do syndicates just have different metrics that they do, or how do they what's the gauge to keep a strip going or not, or do you know that?
It really is. I mean, a lot of it is... and I knew this ahead of time. Everybody would say, don't do this because you're going to get rich. Do it because you can't imagine doing anything else.
Yeah.
And, you have to really love it. I mean, Maury Turner, who did Wee Pals,
Mm-hmm.
He had been in hundreds of papers at one point.
Right.
But towards the end of his life, I think it was maybe only in 50 papers or so.
You're right.
So he wasn't doing it for the money. It was because that was what he did.
Right.
He loved it, and it was a relevant and important strip, and he kept it going. So a lot of it has to do with the artist's passion. I'm sure the syndicates, if you're only in 5 newspapers and you want to stick with it, they're going to keep with you. It's rare for a syndicate to drop the artist.
Okay.
Usually it's the artist who says, I'm not making enough money at this. I got to go sell insurance or whatever it is.
Now, has that always been the case? I always thought if it dropped below a certain amount, they'd say, well, like an example that I know of, the late Lee Hawley, when he was alive, I would speak to him about Ponytail, and it ran for about 20 years or so, maybe 30. I don't remember the end date. But, it just kept dropping papers in the last decade, and he was set financially. So, the way he explained it is they asked him, it's like, well, it's only in 50 papers now. Do you still want to keep doing it? So... but it seemed like they're at the same time kind of forcing him out, too. Like,
yeah, the industry changed a lot. I mean, part of the reason is it used to be pretty darn expensive to keep a syndicated newspaper feature going because there were shipping costs where they were shipping the originals, off to the colorist. The colorist was coloring it, and then they were shipping it, to the syndicate office, and then they would have to ship all these plates and panels and stuff all over the country. And there was the process was an expensive process. Even the process of selling the strip, you'd have to go to New York, meet with all these newspapers, carry around a packet of samples, where you'd have to mail out a giant packet of scripts. Now, you do it all digitally.
Mm-hmm.
So the costs have come down so much that, it doesn't take the syndicate much to find out a newspaper is looking and to send out an email and send a link, and that's it. They're done.
Because I'm used to the way it was traditionally done, because that was the time I was actually submitting things when it was still the old way before newspapers kind of died, Yeah. And then I gave up on it, and I just never knew how it works now. So, but that makes sense. Yeah.
And the process now is, I still have to send stuff in, and I just basically I do it all digital. I send all my dailies to the syndicate by email, and then they distribute them, and then my Sundays, all Sundays are pretty much the same system.
Mm-hmm.
That they're online, the newspapers then log in and then download them and plug them into their computer, plug them into their system a couple weeks ahead. But yeah, it certainly changed. So on one hand, it's become cheaper to syndicate. On the other hand, it's become much more difficult because you don't have the number of papers, you don't have the same audience you once did. The era of shorts is gone.
Right.
There'll never be another Garfield. There'll never be another Calvin Hobbes.
Right. Okay.
Even mega successful strips like Pearls Before Swine, you don't see as many papers as certainly Peanuts were. They're just not there.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, do you make any money when they post them online, on those websites, or is that just freebie for everybody?
No, you technically do. Go Comics is where I'm featured online, and I love being on Go Comics because it does reach a whole new audience and everything. But I'll get my check every 3 months, and I'll go out and buy an Egg McMuffin with that.
Okay. Because I was wondering about that, because it's like it used to be like if you wanted to get all the comic strips, you'd have to buy like 4 or 5 newspapers and hope for the best and get everything. Yeah. And then now it's all online. And it's like, does anybody really make any money if it's all online? You don't get a newspaper anymore.
Yeah, you're not. The cartoonists aren't making. I mean, there's some cartoonists who do really well online.
Uh-huh.
But the bulk of us, it's just it's a few extra bucks here and there.
All right.
And that's why you have so many. I mean, most cartoonists sort of They have their syndicated work. They love it. It was their dream, and just like me. But a lot of them are doing middle reader books. They're doing merchandising. They're doing whatever else they can to sort of help subsidize that income.
Okay. All right. Well, I was just kind of curious because it's like. I don't like to get too nitpicky about somebody's financial situation, but it's like I just know the game has changed so much, so I was like curious about how that worked. Now, prior to the Maze Toon strip, you worked at Toonseum clear to that point, you said?
Yeah, I founded the Toonseum. I was the founder and executive director. Started it in 2007.
Okay.
And then I left in 2014. And that sounds about right. And then the script. Let's see. So I think I'm in my fourth year. Yeah, because it would have been a year after I left that Mazetoons launched.
Okay. And you said you left because the Toonseum because you wanted to pursue a syndicated strip, basically. I had taken the Toonseum as sort of as far as it could go. It started out as sort of as just a very small gallery within the Children's Museum of Pittsburgh. Right.
And then a year or two later, it moved into its own location, a small storefront in downtown Pittsburgh. And then we added a second gallery attached to that, and a hall gallery, and then an outdoor gallery. So we grown substantially, but my vision is either it needed to be a full-blown real museum and grow even bigger, which is my hope, or it just I was going to be bored with it. And it just reached that point where with the board and me, we'd taken as far as we could, and I said, okay, this just doesn't interest me anymore. I need to do what I love. After 7 years of hanging other people's artwork on the walls, you reach a point where you say, well, it'd be nice to see my art up somewhere.
Right. Now, that's how I first met you, quote unquote, because it was never, I think this might be the first time I've actually spoken with you. We just are Facebook friends and things like that. But, I mean, how it worked out was I had done a Harvey Art show with Andrew Farrago, which I interviewed on a previous podcast. And it was successful, and then the MoCA in New York, when it existed, they called us up and they said, hey, can you send it out here? And I never even once considered doing a traveling show. But then I said, okay. And then I said to Andrew, well, are there other museums out there? I know there was Jeffy's at the time, and I think Mort Walker had a museum at the time, or if he did, but I knew there was a couple others. Yeah. And then he mentioned the Toonseum was going to take it on, and I go, oh, cool, Now, that's the only of the four locations it was at, the fourth one being Van Eaton Galleries in Southern California. Of the four locations, your museum was the only one I never went to, although I had a friend of mine take photos out there. What location was it at when the artwork got there?
The Harvey was the downtown location.
Okay.
So that was in what we consider to be the main gallery. There was two galleries. There was the main gallery and there was the Lou Scheimer Gallery, we called it. It was named after the famed animator and producer from Filmation, Lou Scheimer. But the main gallery was sort of, when you came into the building, you had a gift shop and then right into the gallery, and that's what that one was. I actually remember that exhibit pretty fondly and pretty well.
Did it do pretty well? I mean, like I said, I never went, so I don't know, and I never really talked to you.
Yeah, I mean, it really tapped into. I always tried to do a couple things when we did any exhibits. I always tried to have a balance, so that if I had something that was, heavy nostalgia factor, I'd also have some contemporary. The idea was always that Grandpa should be coming in there with their granddaughter and saying, "Oh, look, I want to tell you about Richie Rich." And granddaughter, pulling Grandpa by the hand and say, "Look, Grandpa, SpongeBob." And the idea they would educate one another. And that was sort of always the vision. And I think, Harvey was one of those ones that it was a great nostalgic exhibit. And then the kids really took to it because the style was, the Harvey stuff, the style was just sort of timeless. It was just so charming.
Yeah.
That it still appealed to kids, even if they didn't have the same nostalgia factor. They'd see Casper, and they might vaguely recognize Casper, but they'd see all these other wonderful characters. Oh, these are cool. So yeah, that was a fun exhibit.
Okay. And when you exhibited things there, like I know the Cartoon Art Museum, they always had like 3 or 4 rotating shows. Of course, they've moved locations too since I did that show, but they didn't have Just Harvey, whereas like the MoCA had Just Harvey. So did you have Just Harvey, or did you have a couple other things exhibiting at the same time?
So, I'm trying to think what year we did Harvey, because, like I said, we had
2009, 2010 was when that all was.
Yeah, so we would have had the second gallery by then. So, so there would have been another exhibit in the other gallery. We had a permanent display of art from Filmation, which was always on. And then, I don't remember what exhibit was in the other gallery at that time, but chances are it was probably an animation exhibit, because if we were showing comic books in one gallery, then we were usually showing, animation in the other gallery. So you would just constantly have something to go better.
Okay. And I guess what are some of the other exhibits you had over the years when you were in charge? Just kind of curious.
Goodness, it's funny because we had 2 galleries, and we would change exhibits about every 2-3 months. So, I mean, in some cases, we've done 20 exhibits. And so, over the course of that 7 years, over 100 exhibits. So, I mean, there were so many great ones. We did ones on 90s animation. One of my favorites was I had a collection of original art from coloring books. And these are just obscure. These are all from Whitman coloring books.
Yeah.
And I had like 100 of these things, and they were just bizarre images out of context. And what we did is we had local comedians recaption them all. So we displayed the art with these new captions, and then we invited our guests to use Post-it notes to create their own captions. And it was a hilarious exhibit. It was a lot of fun, but people were checking out the art and really studying it and not realizing it. They were there, they were being funny and making jokes, but they were actually really looking at that art. I loved that exhibit. We did a great exhibit on Wonder Women, which was focused not just on the character of Wonder Woman, but of women artists who worked on superhero comics. Probably some of the proudest exhibits I did, the ones that I'm most proud of, were the ones on like Jackie Holmes and Matt Baker. That's sort of this rich history of African American cartoons. And so celebrating their work was always just important. Anything that tied into sort of that local Pittsburgh connection was always something I was really very proud of, because it really brought people in. So, so many great exhibits over there.
Okay, I have to interrupt here. You're kind of cutting in and out here. I mean, you were fine when it was the Mazetoons part, but now, now it's kind of.
Well, I must be getting shifting around in my chair. I'll stay put now.
Okay, yeah, it sounds a lot clearer there. Sorry about that. So if you could repeat the last part, and then I'll edit this part out. So, what was the last thing you said? Sorry. So
one of the exhibits I was most proud of were the ones that sort of had this uniquely Pittsburgh tie-in. Things like Jackie Orange was the first African-American woman comic strip artist, or Matt Baker, who was one of the first black comic book artists. Pittsburgh has a rich history of African-American cartoonists. And so anything that celebrated sort of those Pittsburgh connections was always very special to me. And it was always something that was sure to bring in a good-sized audience, too. So those ones I have very fond memories of.
Okay. And you mentioned that it just reminded me that you did a couple books that were those concurrent. Like you did the book called 3 Little Pigsburghers, as told in Pittsburghese.
Pittsburghese. So my first book that I did was self-published. It was I had come up with this idea of taking. I'm a storyteller as well as a cartoonist, so I tour all over the country. Drawing stories, I tell them on stage. And I was performing in Florida, the Florida Storytelling Camp, and the first storyteller gets up on stage and says, on the whim, I'm going to tell you a story that's both in English and Russian. Well, the next storyteller sort of latched onto this idea. Now suddenly we got a theme going as they try and top each other. And the next storyteller says, I'm going to tell you a story in English and Spanish. The next storyteller, I'm going to tell you a story in sign language. And then it comes to me, and I realize I don't speak any other languages. And so I say, I go, I'm going to tell you a story in Pittsburghese. And everybody listens, and I go, I'm going to teach you Pittsburghese. It's the language we speak in Pittsburgh. And I gave this short little lesson, and then I, on a whim, told the three little Pittsburghers. And then that sort of, on a plane ride back from California, I was thinking, what am I going to work on next? And I said, I'm going to write this. And I started writing it out, and it was hilarious stuff. And I did a Kickstarter for the book. It did unbelievable. I think it raised $20,000, when Kickstarter was still relatively new.
Mm-hmm.
And got a lot of coverage, and the book became just this Pittsburgh phenomenon. Soap opera that was carried in all in our supermarkets. It was carried in the Heinz History Center and all these gift shops and stores. And finally, I couldn't keep up with it, and I said, okay, well, that project's not on to the next thing. And then I think it was a year and a half ago, the Heinz History Center bought the rights to the book so that they could continue to produce it. So they did a brand new edition that's now out there and is still going very, very strong.
So what is Pittsburghese, I guess? I mean, it's like I know kind of regional accents and things, but explain Pittsburghese to a non-Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania person.
So I believe it was the New York Times once called Pittsburghese the Galapagos Islands of the English language. It is remarkably undisturbed by the outside world. So we have very distinct words, things like a gum band. A gum band is a rubber band. But we also have this unique combination of words and dialect. For example, in the South they might say y'all. We say yins.
What? Okay.
And if the South they said all y'all, we would say yins guys. Okay? If I were to ask you, did you eat? I'd say gee.
Yeah.
That one's pretty common. We have specific foods we like. We like eating at a restaurant called Permanente Brothers.
Mm-hmm.
And you might get a chip-chopped ham sandwich, which is just ham sliced very thin. You would get Iron City beer. Okay? But the way you would ask someone, if you were to actually put this into a sort of a structured sentence, you would go up to your friend and say, here's guys teach that. And they say, no, it's you. You just want to go down to the neighborhood downtown, grab a couple of irons and a chip-chopped ham sandwich and that.
Okay.
Now that is a very common, you will hear that every day in Pittsburgh.
Wow.
And that is sort of a modifier. It can be anything. Like, where are you guys going? I'm going out. If you're going out, you're just going out. But if you're going out, that means you have to dress up. So if you say, I'm going out, dress up. But you can add and at anything. So you could say, I'm going out now. And it's just and that. It just means you're going to do other stuff.
Yeah.
And that can be added to anything, though. You can do shirt now. Yeah, anything.
So what celebrities come from Pittsburgh? So I'm kind of familiar.
So you won't hear it a lot. I mean, we worked very hard to sort of lose it. But Michael Keaton's from Pittsburgh.
Okay.
Jeff Goldblum from Pittsburgh. Mr. Rogers, of course, is from Pittsburgh.
Yeah, Mr. Rogers.
And you can hear the Pittsburgh accent in Mr. Rogers occasionally.
Yeah.
You watch the episode where he pours the Crayola factory.
Okay.
It starts out very much, hello, boys and girls, today we're going to tour the Crayola factory.
Yeah.
I'm working to learn all about crayons. This is a blue crayon. 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 You hear this very harsh crayon instead of crayon.
Yeah.
And that's where you'll hear it occasionally slip out. If you watch Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, you'll hear a few characters who speak with a little bit of Pittsburghese. Chef Rocket was another one.
Yeah. So, are you from Pittsburgh originally?
I am. I am born and raised in Pittsburgh, son of a steelworker. You can't get much more Pittsburgh.
Okay, so you're a Steelers fan, Pirates fan, all that,
Sort of mandatory whether you are or aren't. I mean, otherwise they excommunicate you and you don't live in Cleveland.
Yeah. And now, things like cheesesteak, is that good all over Pennsylvania, or is that just Philadelphia? How does that work?
The Philly is cheesesteak is what they're known for.
Yeah.
Personally, I travel a lot. I'm not a big foodie.
Yeah.
But I do think that the best cheesesteak actually is this place called Pepe's in Pittsburgh. But Pittsburgh is known for a lot of Polish cuisine, like pierogies, stuffed cabbage, halushki, things like that is what we're really known for. But Or most best known is probably the Primanti Brothers sandwich, which is the sandwich with the fries and coleslaw on top of the sandwich.
Okay. Let's see. So, when we're talking here, you don't really have a strong accent. Is that because you have done, like, vocal work and things like that, or you just don't have a harsh accent?
I never had a real harsh accent. I do occasionally slip into sort of the lingo side of it, rather than the accent side of it. So I will use a lot of the words.
Okay.
I do use yins a lot and at and phrases, gumband and buggy and all those things.
Yeah.
But I don't have as harsh an accent, and part of that is because I do voiceover work and I do stories.
I guess that's why. Yeah.
Not quite as harshly. My sister has it.
Oh, okay. Now, since you mentioned the voiceover work, so what have you done, and did you have any formal training for that, or you just kind of left it into it?
Like everything in my life, I decided, I'd like to try this.
Okay.
Probably that was actually right around the time I left Toonseum too, as I was sort of saying, what am I going to do next? There was an audition for some commercials in Pittsburgh, and I showed up, and they loved what I did, and they just kept calling me back every time they had a commercial. They said, hey, do this. And so I ended up becoming sort of the voice of, Amana brand air conditioners and Goodman heating. So, which is a nationwide. So you'll hear these. I'll be in Missouri, and I'll hear a commercial come on. I'll go, that's me. So that was really sort of the main thing. And then I would appear in a few documentaries here and there, and now I just recently started working with a company in New York that's going to be doing more regular voiceover probably. So. But it's something I just always wanted to do, and just decide, okay, figure out how it's done, figure out what they're looking for, and then just try it. And I've enjoyed it.
Now, have you done any cartoon voices or just the narration voiceover type stuff?
Mostly it's commercial work.
Yeah.
At some point I'd love to do, some cartoon voices just because I grew up on that. So,
yeah.
But yeah, right now it's mostly commercial, which, like I said, it's great fun and not especially difficult work, but takes a certain skill set.
Yeah, well, that's why I was asking because, obviously the background with the Toonseum, and you're doing cartoon Mazetoons in this newspaper, so, do cartoon voice seems like a logical extension of that, so.
Yeah, and at some point probably, I hope so. It's like I said, I do a lot of things. It's, I write, I draw, I do silly voices. It's
right.
A little bit of everything.
Now, you did I mentioned the 3 Little Pigsburghers, but you actually did a book that, silly me, I forgot I actually had until I was looking it up. And I go, oh, Joe did this. Oh, okay. I just bought it in the store, but a celebration of animation.
Oh, yes.
The 100 greatest cartoon characters in television history. And, I was like, do I have this book? And I was looking at my bookshelf, and I found it, way off in the bottom corner of my bookshelf, and it's like, oh, there it is, because I didn't even think I purchased it, but I said, oh, I got to pull this out and look at this.
Oh, that's funny. So I really wanted to call it, the 100 greatest cartoon characters to have fist fights over, because that's really the purpose of the book, is to cause. Anytime you do a book of top 100,
right,
it should be designed to cause arguments and fights.
Oh yeah. I mean,
that should be the whole purpose.
Yeah, I know Jerry Beck's book. He had the 100 greatest Looney Tunes, and he had the 50 greatest cartoons of all times. And but what about? It's like.
And it's great because I visit Wizard World Comic Cons all over the country, and I do a panel that focuses on the top 10 in that book, and then I spend the last 20 minutes of that panel just sort of not just defending our decisions, but hearing other people outraged that their favorite characters included. And it's funny because the ones who are most passionate are ones who like this obscure anime character who was, never even aired in the U.S. and there's only 8 episodes, but
right,
included in the top 10 greatest anime.
Right.
So,
You know,
I mean, certain things are like obvious, like Bugs Bunny or something like that. But I mean, when you were developing, and you did this with Marty Gitlin, who actually wrote a great book about cereal boxes that
yes.
I have also. But I didn't know he wrote that either. So I got to start looking at my authors on books that I buy. But anyway, how did you come down to get because I'm sure there was probably 20 obvious ones. You just said, oh, of course we have to have Charlie Brown, of course we have to have Bugs Bunny, of course we have to have whatever. But let's say, did you have arguments about on the cover you have Space Ghost saying I don't like Space Ghost, or
we had a lot of arguments on various. So Marty had his list, I had my list.
Yeah.
His list, and we're probably, me and Marty are probably about 10 years apart, maybe not quite that much. He's a little older than I am. So his stuff skewed heavily towards a lot of Looney Tunes stuff, a lot of Hanna-Barbera stuff. Your very class animation. I have 3 kids, but I'm also, I'm a cartoon historian. I ran a museum. So my stuff either skewed towards more contemporary stuff that I felt deserved it, that I had seen that maybe Marty hadn't, or stuff that I felt had an enormous historical impact. Space Ghost is a good example of both. Yeah. Because Space Ghost is, one of your first superheroes created, actually the first superhero created specifically for television. Under our modern contemporary idea of superhero. Yeah. And it was created specifically for TV. Superman, obviously,
well, at least a straight character, because I think Underdog probably predates it, but that's silly stuff. So yeah.
And you have that, but also you have this wonderful sort of contemporary take where Space Ghost hosted this talk show. Right. You have sort of things, and it's sort of amazing, that you're able to sort of take a show and give it a second life. So, its longevity was a factor, the historical significance, and just, honestly, how good a character is it? Is it a character that just is really well written or well developed? So there's a lot of things that went into that.
Now, were there any characters that you fought for and just for whatever reason, space or whatever, Marty said no, and you just couldn't get it in that you wish were in the book?
There was probably more of that from Marty's side than mine, because like I said, he was very Hanna-Barbera. He loved Hanna-Barbera, loves Looney Tunes. I do too, but it started to get very, very heavy in Looney Tunes and Hanna-Barbera. So, and I really wanted to fight for a little more, both racial diversity as well as gender diversity, which is hard to do. Yeah. Just historically speaking, there's not a lot of great roles for female characters and for characters of color. Right. But I wanted to make sure there was, reasonable representation. If a character's in there, they should deserve to be in there. Right. But we also need to just seek out and go, oh yeah, wait a minute, of course this character belongs in here. It happens to be a female character. So that's great. So a good example of that would be a character like Harley Quinn. Harley's a contemporary character, but has such a dedicated fan base. Right. And was the first of the sort of Batman characters to become that popular that was created for the animation. Most of the Batman villains pulled from, of course, the comics, or it was created for the TV show, but really just took on this. You go to any Comic-Con and there's, 50 Harlequins. Right. So that's a good example of one that I really thought to keep in. Yeah. And, well, looking at the list right now, you have a pretty good cross-section, and, yeah, it would get kind of redundant, even though I am a fan of Looney Tunes and everything else. It would get kind of redundant if it was all Looney Tunes and Hanna-Barbera. Especially if you're trying to say of all time. I know of all time for some people means the 50s and 60s or whatever, and I'm guilty of that too. But, you got to realize, you got on the cover like Fairly Odd Parents. It's like those have their charms. They have their moments, SpongeBob and everything else. And yes, they have their fans and longevity, so that should be on there.
you know.
Yeah, and we tried to. I mean, one of the things I did, I had to look. There's a lot of great contemporary characters, but you know, if it was contemporary, I looked at it and said, okay, has it made it past at least 4 or 5 seasons?
Yeah.
You know, do I think this is really going to stand a test time, or is it really that good a character? You know that.
Yeah.
You know, people are going to remember this for a while. So, yeah, so I think, you know, Dexter is in there, and that's, you know, contemporary. And I have to watch a bunch of episodes, and as I'm watching, I'm like, yeah, this is really funny stuff. You know, this is a good character.
Yeah. I mean, if there's any dearth of anything, it's probably just, like, the absence of a lot of black and white characters or silent characters like Colonel He's a Liar or something like that. But I mean, you know, they're not that memorable to today's audiences. So, you know.
Yeah, that's and you know, when you look at sort of, the history of TV animation, and it's, you know, I know Marty really wanted to have like Pepe Le Pew.
Yeah.
And I said, no, he's actually only he's not in that many cartoons.
Right.
You know, to put him in there over, you know, say someone like Gil Fair, who had many incarnations, you know, yeah, I can't see that. So characters, and then also I looked at Pepe Le Pew. You know, we had an issue because we were writing this book, and Fat Albert, just as the Bill Cosby scandal was breaking, and we're going, oh, how do we handle this? You know, what do we do? And the same thing was sort of with Pepe Le Pew. I go, you know, there really is a movement against Pepe Le Pew.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I don't think the character is that great. So we're just going to cut him. But, you know, you did have to take in sort of, it's unfair sometimes to impose modern sensibilities on these historical cartoons.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you have to be cognizant of your audience.
Right.
And say, okay, we can educate on this level, but, you know, if it's going to offend, we don't necessarily need to do that because there's lots of other great characters.
Yeah. But, I mean, you know, overall, it'd probably be better to have Fat Albert than, say, Cole Black or something.
Certainly, yeah. I mean, and the character of Fat Albert and the show is groundbreaking.
Yeah.
And Cosby, in truth, other than sort of coming up with the characters and doing the voices for a little while, and the host, he wasn't one of the writers on the show. He wasn't one of the animators on the show. He didn't know the look of Fat Albert. So it's just a shame that such a great cartoonist is tarnished by his, you know, actions.
Yeah, but I mean, you could go through and probably find something on everything if you really, you know, you got Ren and Stimpy in there, and there's issues behind that now, and you know, it's like, but you know, it's like it's life, you know, it's like, but
and that's the way you just sort of have to go, like, okay, in the grand scheme of things, this character is you know, the value of the character, and its historical significance and its impact and its positive role in our culture far outweighs the actions of a creator who, you know, perhaps someday will be long forgotten and the characters will live on.
Yeah.
You know, if I were to go up to any kid and say, you know, who created Ren and Stimpy, they have no idea.
Yeah.
They know the characters, but they don't know the creators.
And you could even make a case, you know, I'm just going on the negative right now, you know, it's like, you know, Batman's creator, Bob Kane, you know, he wasn't really that ethical, I guess is the best way to put it, you know, and it's like, well, you know, but Batman, everybody knows Batman, so yeah, these characters will have long outlived their creators, so yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't know if you have any other books. So do you have anything else planned at this point, or?
Yeah, so I have a series of books of mazes from BGS Publishing.
Okay.
Formerly Barron's Publishing. There is Amazing Animals, which are all animal mazes.
Mm-hmm.
There is Myths and Monsters, which is mythology and monsters from around the world.
Mm-hmm.
There's Mazezilic, which is all dinosaur mazes. And my most recent one, which came out in November, is Amazing America, 50 Mazes of the 50 States, which is iconic characters, landmarks, and just features all 50 states. And that was a lot of fun to work on. A lot of research now.
Now, in all these maze books, these are unique mazes? They're not ones from Maze?
These are all uniquely created for the book, so these are not ones from my, my syndication.
Mm-hmm.
These are all created specifically for the books.
Okay.
Now, are there Mazetoon books too? Like, do you compile those in any books at this time?
Not yet. We're working on it. I have an agent out there pushing ideas constantly. So I've got probably about 6 different book ideas she's floating around, and Mazetoons is one of them. So hopefully, sometime this year, this will be the year.
Now, are there any books in the planning at this time, kind of like your 100 Greatest Cartoon Characters?
Yeah, I've written, started writing and written a proposal for a book called Comical Candidates, which are comedians and fictional characters who have run for the presidency.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that's a lot of fun. It started out as an article I'd written for a newspaper, and then I've been doing it as a panel, and I said, there's actually a whole book here. This is some really interesting stuff.
Right.
So everything from, Gracie Allen from Burns and Allen to, Yogi Bear, and Snoopy.
Yeah, and McGill Gorilla.
McGill Gorilla, yeah, and of course, your characters in Bloom County and so forth, Bill the Cat.
And
Alvin
from
Alvin several times, yeah.
Trying to think of different ones. Pat Paulson, in a certain respect, even though he's a real person.
Oh, yes, no, Pat Paulson actually was what inspired the book, because I was actually, in the 2000 election, right before he passed away, I was Pat Paulson's campaign coordinator in Pittsburgh.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So I like to think I got him 2 votes.
How was he to work with? Did you work with him directly, or is it just like
Yeah, what happened was he had seen some of my work online. This was many years ago. This is in the 90s. And was working on this series of maps he wanted to do called Pat Paulson's Cockeyed Maps of America. And they were just completely politically incorrect, but funny. And he asked if I would illustrate. And, I was in my 30s. And I said, oh, yeah, first of all, I was a huge Pat Paulson fan. So, so we became friends through that. And then, sadly, he passed away far too early. But yeah, that's how we got to work together.
Oh, very good. So I guess we're getting near the end here. So I always give everyone a chance to plug anything they're doing, past, present, or future. I mean, websites or emails or whatever you want to do. Go have at it.
Yeah, of course, visit me on Mazetoons.com. Support my Patreon. Visit me on Twitter, Instagram. It's all Mazetoons. Mazetoons. So that's the main thing to do. I am touring this Comic-Con nationwide, so people can come and visit me at Wizard World. Come see my panels. I usually do free sketches at the Comic-Con, so come get a free sketch. And, just follow me. And most important, if you have a local newspaper, write your local newspaper, email them, and ask them to carry Mazetoons from Creator Syndicate.
Okay, very good. And Celebration of Animation is still available in bookstores, as far as I know. I got mine at a Barnes & Noble, but you can
Yes, all my books are available at bookstores and online nationwide, worldwide.
All right. Well, very good. And any last thoughts or anything else before we close?
No, just thank you. I'm a big fan of your work.
Okay.
So it's just nice. It's a great honor to talk to you, and just keep doing what you do. It's I love it. So support Mark's work too, not just mine.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, and I want to thank you, Joe, for being a podcast guest for me. And this will probably be uploaded in a few weeks, and I will let you know. But I thank you for being my guest today.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
You too. Have a good day.
Bye.
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 Thank you for listening. Thank you again, Joe Waz, for being my special guest. Episode number 27 will be coming soon. If you'd like to comment and or be a guest on this podcast, please drop me a line at funideas.mark@gmail.com. Become a patron of Fun Ideas Productions. If everyone listening just contributed $1 a month, that would be a tremendous help. This has been the Fun Ideas Podcast. This is Mark Arnold speaking. This episode is copyright 2019 Fun Ideas Productions. Thank you very much, and have a good night.